Hello, everybody. Sorry that I won't get to see you today, but I'm glad you're in class, or I'm glad you're watching this video from home if you couldn't make it to school today. So, first thing I'm going to say, if you are at school, go ahead and restart your computer. It's always a good idea to do that when you're in the building. If you've already done that once at least today, you're probably okay. All right, the next thing I'm going to say is please watch this whole video. It's not going to be super long, but I just want to make sure you understand exactly what you're working on so that we are on the same page next class, because you do have a quiz next class. All right, so you're going to do some review material using Kahoot first off during class, and then I'm going to have you read through the State of the Bay material. There's a link in Schoology. Next, after that, after you read through the State of the Bay, you're going to look at the instructions on your MWEE project proposal slides. That's a Google assignment for you. Read through all those slides and you can fill in information on some of those slides as you do research. So you'll see what the project is, and then you can record your research on the Google slides if you'd like, or you can actually use paper too. Please be sure you review the rubric. You're going to see the rubric in your slides, but I also saved it as a PDF and put it in Schoology so that you can see that lots of places. That's how you're going to be graded. So you will have printed copies. You should have printed copies in class today, but for sure, if you don't have the copies of the rubric today, I will give them to you next class just after the quiz. After your quiz, you're also going to have some more time to keep working on this project. Okay, all right. So, since we're getting ready to have a quiz next class and we're about to do some review material, I just want to show you some vocabulary that you're going to want to know. And you can always pause the video here later on just to double check that you know all these words. I'm not going to go through all the definitions in this video, but I will say this is watershed, wetland, water quality monitoring. What do we need? What do we mean when we are talking about our water quality monitoring? pH, dissolved oxygen. Turbidity is actually just another fancy word for clarity, or how clear the water is, or how, well, mostly how clear the water is. But we won't typically use that in the quiz. It's just another word like clarity. Salinity talks about the amount of salt that we have. So the ocean is very salty water. Fresh water that we have in creeks and streams and in the rain, that does not have salt in it. But our Chesapeake Bay is an estuary. An estuary is partly saltwater and partly freshwater. So sometimes we will say it has low salinity. Remember that we talked about benthic macroinvertebrates. Benthic means they are at the bottom of the creek or the lake or the stream, and macro means you can see them with your eyes. Invertebrates means that they don't have any backbone. But we also talked about some other organisms that live in the water that do have backbones, like fish. Please be able to identify the Chesapeake Bay. Try to remember which of the states have water that goes into the bay, plus also the Washington, D.C. district has water that drains into the Chesapeake Bay. You know what erosion is, and we just mentioned that an estuary is something like the Chesapeake Bay, where we have partly saltwater and partly freshwater. It's a lower salinity than the ocean. We're going to think about tributaries, ridge lines, river systems. Those are all terms that we had on our watershed diagram. Plus the words pervious and impervious. We can also say permeable and impermeable. Okay, so just make sure you know all that vocabulary, and it's going to come up as you do your Kahoot practice. So today we're going to start off class with a review of our key terms. You do have a quiz next class, so hopefully by now you have your computer ready and open since you're watching this video. You're going to complete this Kahoot review independently. Now I've assigned it as though it was homework, so it's not as a full class. Okay, so you can find this Kahoot practice by going into today's bright yellowy subfolder. It says subplans for Monday, October 21 or Tuesday, October 22. You're going to click on the link that says Kahoot practice for watershed MWEE quiz right now and complete that, please. Try not to take too long on that because you know you have lots of other things to do. If you'd like to look through the rest of this video just to see what else is coming for today, you can do that. Otherwise, anything you don't finish today in class, you're going to have to start your project for homework, and then I'll give you a little bit of time next class on the project. Okay, so you're going to work on your Kahoot right now, so you'll pause this video, go work on your Kahoot, and then come back. All right, now that you've done your Kahoot, I want to go through a couple of questions and just make sure that we are clear on some of these things. So remember, an estuary is a body of water that is partially enclosed. So it's partially enclosed here, but it is open and goes out into the ocean. And it is partly freshwater and partly saltwater. So partially enclosed body of water where we have fresh water from rain and from our rivers and tributaries coming in, and it mixes with the salt water that's coming in from the ocean. So we have a lot of salt, high salinity out here in the Atlantic Ocean. In our rivers and streams, we have no salt. And then in our Chesapeake Bay, we have some salt. It's an estuary. It's partly saltwater. Okay, so remember we talked about erosion in lots of places. Some of the things we can do to prevent erosion are to change the path of the water, so we can build up either concrete or other barriers to try to redirect the water. Or this is really what we talked mostly about, is we can plant native plants like trees, grasses, flowers, bushes, shrubs to try to prevent that soil from eroding. So remember, when we plant plants around those banks, those soil banks near the rivers, we know that those roots are going to hug the soil and keep it in place. All right, so remember that organisms that are not native to the area and can cause harm to the local ecosystems, they are called invasive species. And we can have invasive plants, or insects, or fish, or other animals. Lots of different types of invasive species. We talked about different types of people who study the streams and waterways in Fairfax County, and even going into the Chesapeake Bay. Remember, those are freshwater ecologists if they're studying freshwater. They might be marine ecologists or marine biologists if they are studying the estuaries or the ocean waters. So remember, they use lots of different methods to evaluate the health of our streams and rivers and lakes. And a lot of those are the same things that we did. We test some water chemistry. So we tested pH, we tested dissolved oxygen, we tested nitrites, clarity. And so you want to think about the things that we did when we were in class on our own ecosystems. That's one way that we can test for the health of an ecosystem. We practiced, we didn't for real look at macroinvertebrates, but we rolled a cube or a die in class and talked about how different macroinvertebrates that exist in your ecosystem can let you know whether it's a particularly healthy ecosystem or maybe not so healthy, depending on what is able to live in that environment. We also know that the fish community that is alive and well in our streams can be an indicator of how healthy our water is. And we can check the habitat all around the water as well. So looking at those riverbanks and making sure they're not too terribly eroded to make sure that the entire habitat is healthy. All right, so when you are asked to think about different issues that could be addressed at Frost Middle School, these are 4 separate things that we could think about. Okay, so remember, if you are in odd classes, you're going to have your quiz on Wednesday. If you're in even classes, your quiz is actually going to be on Thursday, so I'm going to do the next slide with the Thursday date. But we're going to cover key terms from our watershed walk and the information that we have been learning. You can look at your watershed notes and your watershed walk notes. Always go back and look at your exit tickets, and you can look at your slides that we've got in Schoology. If you turned in your notes before the weekend, please go grab those from the turn-in bins. I didn't take them home with me because I want you to have them to study them, and then you can turn them in again later on in the week when I see you. Okay, so if you are in an odd numbered class, you are going to take your quiz on Wednesday. If you're in an even numbered class, you're going to take your quiz on Thursday. But all the other information I've said is the same. Okay, so now I'd like for you to go back into Schoology in a moment. You're going to pause this. You're going to go back into Schoology and click on this MWEE Day 4 State of the Bay report. So I'd say go ahead and watch this video a little bit longer so that you know what you're doing with that. But you're going to click on that State of the Bay report and you're going to read through some of it. Okay, when you click on the State of the Bay report, you're going to see that they have 16 pages. I don't expect you to read 16 pages, but please look through the whole report card. Think about what all of the scores on the report card mean to the Chesapeake Bay, and then kind of browse through the other pages to see what issues are particularly interesting to you. Okay, so I'm not going to actually run 6 minutes on this video, but you can pause and go back and look at your State of the Bay link. And just know that if we were in class, I would give you 6 minutes. So that's roughly what I'm thinking it'll take you. Okay. All right, I'm assuming you've come back from reading through your State of the Bay report. And so here is our report card. And you can see we got a D+, which is really not that great. And so we can look and see our nitrogen is high. And remember, we said that nitrogen comes from fertilizer a lot. And that is definitely something that's coming from Northern Virginia, from our lawns. It comes from some of the agricultural areas where people are farming as well. Phosphorus is another chemical that's in our fertilizer. Not quite as bad, but still we have quite a bit of phosphorus that has polluted. It is pollution in the Chesapeake Bay. Our dissolved oxygen is C. It's okay. It's not great. You can also see our changes from 2020, which is the last time we got a report card. So we actually we can just kind of take a look at our scores, and you can look at the report information on page 2 to see how they scored everything. All right, our water quality, our water clarity is really not great. We have an F in water clarity. This score is not the same as when we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just so you know. It's not the same as the scale that we used in our classroom. It's just a different grade. We do have toxic chemicals that have gotten in. We have a D. There are forest buffers. This is a good thing, right? If we can put some forest buffers that have trees and bushes and grasses and things with roots, that's good. That's a good way we can help try to filter the water. And wetlands, that's going to be areas that are wet and have tall grasses growing up out of the water. We have underwater grasses. We have resource lands near the waters. So we didn't talk about a lot of that, but we did talk about forest buffers and other ways to prevent erosion. And then I'm not really going to get into fisheries, but you can see that there's rockfish and oysters and blue crabs, and shad is another kind of fish. So you can see that we have different scores for the things that are living in the bay. All right. Not a great score overall, right? And we had a D+ in 2020 as well, so we haven't really fixed it yet. Okay, so you are going to be thinking about issues in the Chesapeake Bay. You're going to get to choose from 8 different issues. And then I want you to figure out what is the issue you're focusing on. How does that issue affect the Chesapeake Bay? Don't just say fertilizer and say fertilizer gets in the Chesapeake Bay. I want you to give me what it is going to do when fertilizer gets into the Chesapeake Bay. That chemical does what? So that means you're going to have to research it, right? All right. So whatever issue you choose, you could write pollution or fertilizer or toxic chemicals as the issue, but explain how it's affecting the bay. Explain what's already being done to help, because of course we're trying, right? We're trying to fix our Chesapeake Bay. And then how can we help? And by we, I mean students at Frost, because remember, that's the whole point. How can you, as an environmentally conscious student at Frost, propose ways that we at Frost can lower or reduce our impact on the Chesapeake Bay? All right, so what are the issues impacting the bay? Here's your 8 options. You're going to choose one, and then you're going to work independently to start filling in information on your paper. This is the opposite side of your rubric. You can use plain paper as well, and you can also make some recordings in your Google assignment if you prefer to do this on the computer. But I beg you to please don't cut and paste and copy. Please type in your own words. So read a little bit and then type in just a little bit so that you make sure it's in your words. All right. So try to make sure that nobody else at your table is using the same issue that you are discussing. Okay. So once this slide deck is available in Schoology as well, you can click on each one of these issues, and I'm going to have another link that has the issues just clearly available, so you can click on them. Every time you click on one of these, it will take you, whoopsie daisy, I didn't, when you click on these, it will actually take you to some resources that will give you information about either agricultural runoff, air pollution, development, invasive species, nutrient runoffs, sediment runoff, stormwater runoff, or climate change. All right. If you would like a brain break, you can click on the brain break on your own. I've put just the brain break in as a link in Schoology. Okay. So remember, here's the question you are going to answer. How can I, as an environmentally conscious student, propose a plan to help reduce my school's impact on the Chesapeake Bay? You'll choose one of those 8 issues, and you can use some of these concepts in your answer. We might be evaluating water chemistry, and we are thinking about ways to raise our pH or lower the nitrites or something like that. You can read through and pick and choose what's interesting to you. Okay. All right. So we have crabs, we have fish, we have just grasses and marshland and water, wetlands and things growing in our Chesapeake Bay, and we just want to keep it healthy. Remember, the Chesapeake Bay is 200 miles long. 200 miles long. It's about 30 miles wide, and its average depth is only 21 feet. Shallow water means that it's more vulnerable to pollution. It's more likely to get polluted. All right, so you're going to use the link in Schoology, click on whichever issue you decide, and you might need to look at the issues first, click through a couple of them first, and then decide. That's okay. And then you're filling out this piece of paper. Here's your rubric. So I'm going to read through the rubric and make sure that you also have listened about the rubric. When you're ready to turn in your video, you want to go through all of these items, and you're going to check off if you did it, because you're not going to get points for it if you didn't do it. All right, so on your video, does your video say the issue or the problem in the bay that you are going to address? Is it very obvious? Did you explain why your issue is harmful to the Chesapeake Bay? Did you clearly state your idea or proposal for how Frost students can reduce our negative impact? Is it clearly explained? Did you explain how your idea or proposal is going to help Frost's watershed? Okay, you need to use 4 specific terms, and I have the terms listed in your Google Slides assignment. Choose 4 of those terms, write them down on your piece of paper, because I want to make sure that you have used 4 of the scientific terms we are offering, and then you'll get full credit for this. Okay. Did you include an approximate cost for your proposal? Or if you couldn't come up with exact money, how much things would cost, what are people going to have to pay for if they implement what you are suggesting? So if you suggest putting a whole lot of hay bales all around the outside edges of Frost to try to keep some of our grass clippings and trash from getting into the stormwater, how many hay bales do you think we'll need? How much do you think that's going to cost? And you can Google some of that, right? Okay. Was your audio clear and easy to understand? If I click on your link and I can't hear anything because it just didn't record properly, I can't grade it, right? So double check and make sure that your video is audible, something that I can hear. right, and did you make sure that your video proposal was not longer than 90 seconds? Please make sure. Okay, so you're going to include at least 2 visuals to help your audience understand the issue. And so you might just create a couple of slides. If you do a couple of Google Slides and just record your whole presentation in Google Slides, that works. Or you could create a couple of images in Canva. So, all right. If you have questions on the rubric when I'm back in class on Wednesday, Thursday, you can check with me. And then you get to complete your project over the weekend. It is due on Monday, the 28th for absolutely everybody, even if you don't have class with me on the 28th. All right. So again, these links are in Schoology for you. You can click on any one of these numbers and get information about these issues. Also, they're linked in the MWEE proposal project working slides assignment. So now I'm going to ask you to start your research, and you'll open your Google Slides assignment and get started. You will not likely finish it today in class. Next class, you have a quiz pretty much right at the beginning, and then we'll work on this project some more. Great, thank you so much. Feel free to email if you have any questions, and I'll try to help.